I thought I might read a little excerpt from Rana Mitter's wonderful text, A Bitter Revolution, which has really made a big splash in my life anyway. Oxford University Press and its publication in Anno Domini 2004. Let's just read real rapidly here. A Tale of Two Cities, Chapter 2, Beijing, Shanghai, and the May 4th Generation. Youth, wrote the radical activist Chen Yushu in 1915, is like early spring, like the rising sun, like trees and grass in bud, like a newly sharpened blade. It is the most valuable period of life. To be young and living in the city, in China during the early years of the Republic, the period when Chen was writing, was to grow up in a dangerous, yet a deeply exciting time. For this generation, space opened up. This could be as individual as the opportunity to walk around freely given to young women whose feet were no longer bound, as local as the new places such as public parks, schools, cinemas, department stores, and factories, which had not existed a generation before, and as global as the modernizing imperialist capitalist world that had forced itself on China, but was also open for exploration by the Chinese. In short, this chapter, Chapter 2, is about the excitement, the arrogance, and the uncertainty of being young at the dawn of Chinese modernity. To understand the ideas that changed China during this period, it is essential to understand the places and people associated with those ideas. This chapter examines the atmosphere in Beijing and Shanghai in the interwar period, and then takes a closer look at some of the individuals and groups who lived in those cities, for the cities were essential to China's development of a modern identity. It was a very peculiar type of modernity which the Chinese Republic encountered. Within a few years of the Republic's birth in 1912, China had to deal with global powers exhausted by the destruction of World War I. China itself had, of course, been a participant in the war, an event leading to the betrayal and disillusionment that caused the 1919 May 4th demonstrations in Beijing. Not just nationalism, but that the internationalism needed to be validated. China was playing the role of a stakeholder in World War I and was denied any rewards. Interesting, isn't it? May 4th, nationalism/internationalism. In Europe, though, there was a strong sense that this promise of progress of the Victorian era. Wow, that's great. In Europe, though, there was a strong sense that the promise of progress of the Victorian era had been destroyed in the killing fields of the World War. Ideas that undermined rationality and grand romantic views of the future jostled with the now tarnished idea that scientific clinical modernity was an unalloyed good that could show the way forward for the world. Science was mustard gas, as well as Marconi radios or medicine. The great powers, regardless of which side they had fought on, struggled to recover a lost pre-war idyll. Europe's wartime agony and the culture of often forced frivolity that supplanted it was visible every day in China through the continuing imperialist presence. British veterans such as Maurice Tinkler, unable to find work at home in Lancashire after coming home from the Western Front, shipped out to Shanghai in 1919 as new recruits of the Shanghai Municipal Police, thank you Frederick Wakeman, which kept law and order in the international settlement. Shanghai is the best city I have seen, and I will leave any English town, and it will leave any English town 100 years behind, he marveled on arrival. It is the most cosmopolitan city of the world, bar none, and the finest city of the Far East. In the French concession, marks of the European war could be seen everywhere, with major boulevards renamed Avenues Joffre and Foch after the victorious generals. Throughout the city, the newest American and European-style culture could be seen. Fast cars, jazz bars, and advertisements for exciting new consumer products such as RCA gramophones and Golden Dragon cigarettes. For opium was not the only addictive drug that was mass-marketed in China, so was nicotine. The treaty port cities, and in particular Shanghai, created a particular type of imperial modernity that sometimes seemed to suspend the reality that the cities were squarely in Chinese territory, inhabited mostly by Chinese. Yet outward-looking aspects of that modernity were explored by Chinese too, such as the writer Shi Zhicun, who wandered around the bookstores of the international settlement and the coffee shops of the French concession, living a Parisian left-bank lifestyle at one remove. The world the Great War had made was part of China's Republican experience, capital R, for Chinese as well as foreigners. From the White Russians in exile in Shanghai, from the Soviet government brought to power by the collapse of the Tsarist Empire, to the associations of Chinese labor veterans of the European front. The world of war came to China just as China had gone to the war. The May 4th era itself was part of that changed world. It was in China's cities where the new thinking developed, and in particular in Beijing and Shanghai.